I married a Muslim woman. I'm oppressed. It's hard to be a Muslim community because you can be anything else in this community. Allah made me a doctor. Alhamdulillah. Allah made me a lawyer. MashaAllah. Allah made me funny. Astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. You're just seeing clips from my comedy special, Love Supreme and Anatomy of Gratitude. I'm Preacher Mars, and I'm asking you to help send me to prison. My hope and call to action is that we distribute the film to prisons around the country and put smiles on the faces of the incarcerated and the invisible, Muslim and non-Muslim. Along with that, your donation will fund grants to trained returning citizens for IT jobs. It's important to support them and their families. I'm Preacher Moss. Help send me to prison. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you're getting new episodes, and we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. It's me, Preacher Ross, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. I hope everybody's having a great day. We have a special version, if you will, of Throwback Thursdays. I decided to make it throwback and mean something, if that's possible. I know a lot of times we talk about bits and pieces, but sometimes in the future you find remedies and solutions to help you get through the day. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to anybody that's coming on the show for the first time. We appreciate you. Stop what you're doing. Hang out with the folks that are here. And I'm going to tell you why. This is a select group of people, a collected group of people who come on the show, dedicated. They come from around the world. They stop and they give us 22 minutes to 30 minutes of their time. We hope that you're going to be able to do it as well. I see some people in the box. I'm going to be getting to you in just a moment. For all of you people, like I said, that come for the first time, click the subscription box. Click the notification box, the like box if you like the show. You are in a special place. And it doesn't matter. If you're coming on the show, I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that you are officially part of the Shout Out Show family. You are a Shout Out Show soldier. So let me get to the people in the comment section. We got a new one, K-Tron. Let me give a shout out to Brother K-Tron. How you doing? We are doing all right, Brother K-Tron. Thank you so much for coming and joining our format. We have Miss Eleanor, my mom, that tune in regularly from Washington, D.C., Thank you, too. They are the OGs. They are the 5804 Justina OGSs. I put on there for OGSs to make it feminine. All right, so let me get back up here to, we got a lot of folks here. My brother, actually, will be in IT class today, learning that Salesforce administrator. We made it out. We made it all the way to the end. I mean, we struggled, but we made it, and I think that's important. Big shout out to my little brother, Johnny Thomas, and the Thomas family, Miss Maisie, and Miss Mamie, and everybody. Shout out to them. Vivian and Eunice and everybody. Shout out to Milwaukee. Give a shout out to Sister Ree. What's going on, Sister Ree? Glad you can make it. Hope you enjoyed that halal rotisserie chicken with this ginger lemonade and the all-important Muslim bean pie. You take 2 bites of that, you're a Muslim. All right? So you're going to have to give up pork. Okay. She's talking about, I don't know if I like the bean pie that much. I want to give a shout out to Sister Sultana, our consultant producer. If you tuned in at the beginning of the show, I put a poster up. I'm going to put it back up. It's going to let you know a little bit about our host, our guest host. That's Sultana Whitfield, who's going to be leading the charge on Saturday at Saturday Spotlight with our guests. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about our guests. Sister Rabina, thank you for coming back in the spot. Always a pleasure to have you in the house. I hope things are going over well over in the UK. I know you stay up late, and we appreciate you coming and spending your time and sharing your essence. All right. And my main man, Altaf Rashid, all the way from Toronto. This brother comes, and it's a good time you come, man. You come every day. You don't have to worry about immigration, passport, any of that. Nothing. We appreciate you. This is the Canada-U.S. connection. And make sure we keep it going, Altaf. Appreciate it. Walaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh. All right, Rhea, I'm glad you and Derek did enjoy that food. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So, brothers and sisters, today's topic is nothing new. But I thought in view of what we saw yesterday, and I started talking about, is COVID-19 the end of the old school era, how we used to do things. I really thought about it today, played around with it, and I was like, you know what? There was something about the old school that we didn't talk about. And that aspect was the ability of old school people in our families. If you go back a generation, 2 generations, you're going to, particularly African American and minority here in the United States, you're going to run into people who had it way more difficult than you did. They had it way more difficult than you did. When I say way more difficult, it means that the laws were position or set in a certain type of juxtaposition to make sure that you did not win, to make sure that every aspect of your life was framed for a minority, or I want to say inferiority existence. So I'm looking at what we're going through today, and we do have illness. That's granted. We have illness. We have economic strife. We have a lot of pressure on our children. But what I want to talk about today, how do you push through? How do you push through? And you can put your strategies on how you push through in the comments section. But I thought I'd lay a little bit of a foundational thing about pushing through from my perspective. One of the things I learned about pushing through was understanding environments. Like when I have to deal with a crisis or something, there's 2 things I look at. I said, how much of the crisis is the environment and how much of the crisis is me? Let me say it again. How much of the crisis is environment and how much of the crisis is me? Because I tend to be very, very sequential. Like a lot of us are very, very sequential. We look at a problem. Where was it? When did it become a problem? When did it become a crisis? We do that. Nature really, really informs us of a lot of things. Let me give a shout out to Assalamualaikum, Sister Aika. Thank you so much for coming to the show. We appreciate you. All the way from Indonesia, waking up from that Fajr thing. Thank you so much for coming. But the idea of pushing through is interesting because if you're African American, let me break this down. If you're African American, in the United States, your traditional framework comes from the South. Everybody knows at the turn of the century of the 1900s, they said 80% of African American population was below the Mason-Dixon line. Essentially, when we were released from slavery, we were essentially largely farmers. The main route to economic prosperity, entrepreneurship was farming. You worked the land that no one paid you for. Now you're working for yourself. Incredible theory, man. But the thing is, even in that aspect of being able to be entrepreneurs, you couldn't get loans. You couldn't buy equipment. Or when you could, it was at such an exorbitant rate that the amount that you pay for the equipment, it ate into your profits. Hence, you have the whole thing, sharecropping and things like that. What I realized in talking to some of my older brothers and sisters was that they became masters of understanding environment. And somehow, some way, they became very, very good specialists of separating their character from the environment. Let me say it again. They separated their character from the environment. And being able to do that, they understood that the environment was going to be what it was going to be. However, character has a different narrative. Character has, I want to say, a different protocol for how you grow character. And the best of character will grow in a chaotic situation, will not become part of the chaotic situation. So I would like to say, for a lot of people pushing through in difficult times, you have to separate your character from the environment. What's happened now is everybody has something to say. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a point of view. And with the opinion and the point of view, 9 times out of 10, everybody thinks that they're right. Well, I've learned that to really be effective in difficult times, instead of looking at being right, you have to look at what you're doing wrong. That's the other side of character. Being able to look at yourself and say, hey, maybe these 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I'm doing incorrectly or not efficiently, if I flip 2 or 3 of them around, I'm going to get a different result. You've heard me say this before. Imam Muhammad said something that really, really resonated with me for a ton of years. Now, here's a guy, an imam, that led a religious community of African American Muslims out of the Nation of Islam, and I'm not separating the Nation of Islam from the W.D. Muhammad community on a historical framework. You cannot do it. But what they learned, brothers and sisters, in the Nation of Islam, is they learned that they could separate their character, evolve their character, in spite of the environment. Now, people are going to say, well, Elijah Muhammad didn't know. Elijah Muhammad talked about it. Let's be honest. Sister Clara Muhammad perfected this whole thing because she developed, along with the women of the early pioneering era in the Nation of Islam and Islam in America, she developed a pioneering perspective that created leadership roles for men and places for women to promote leadership roles for men because they understood that they were in a patriarchal society. They eliminated one of the oppressive groups in their society, which was Black men, by giving them a purpose, framing them up, cleaning them up, giving them a religious edict to move forward and protect and grow this family. Now, this is nothing new, but I think it needs to be reiterated. And when I say, something needs to be reiterated, there's usually a reason. Number one, either we don't remember it, or number two, we don't understand particularly the gravity of the situation. Let me give a shout out to Ahmad Shahid. That's right. Pain, sweat, just weakness is leaving the body. With difficulty comes ease. Yes. I'm going to talk about that right now, Ahmed. If anybody here is an athlete, you've done athletic things, whatever, there's a thing called a pain threshold. Let me say again. There's a thing called a pain threshold. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Jasmine. Welcome from the UK. Glad to have you. And that pain threshold for some folks is, this is where I quit. And a pain threshold for some folks is, these are my limitations. Can I go a little bit longer? In sports, we call it pushing through the wall. I'll give you an analogy. Years ago, I was training for a half marathon. Now, at this point in time, the most I might have run was like 8, 9 miles on a regular, like maybe 4 times a week. You run 8, 9 miles. Okay, cool. But to do the half marathon, which was 13.3 miles, you had to adjust some things. And so when you would run and get to the 8-mile mark or the 9-mile mark, in your mind, you're like, this is where the race begins. This is where the half marathon begins. I have to restructure my mind for how I'm going to finish this next 5 or 4 miles, if you will. And your body would feel pain, but the adrenaline will run through and it will give you another orientation. And so you will run longer. That pain and sweat that Ahmed has referred to is not just weakness, it's fear of crossing a threshold. It's fear of going farther than you've ever gone before. It's fear of moving into a space where there's not familiarity, where things don't look like they normally do. And you have to ask questions and you have to have different engagements. You know, I'm an only, but I know that my mom has always made a lot of prayers for me when I made moves because I would be leaving and there would be no family in Milwaukee. There would be no family in Long Beach. I would get up and go because I was just oriented that the task was get up and go. And you didn't think about, oh my gosh, I'm leaving this. It was like, no, I'm gonna make it because you had, or I had, or was blessed with a certain game plan for how you got into a city, how you got to learn folks and things like that. And a lot of it had to do with comedy. Let's be honest. A lot of it had to do with comedy because what is comedy? Comedy is you go to a strange town, you don't know anybody, you go to a club, sometimes there's 150 people there, 200 people, sometimes just 50 people, sometimes it's 25. But your job is to somehow engage those people in a time frame, a constricted time frame of 15, 30, or 45 minutes, depending on where you are in the show. And your job was to engage them. In engaging them, you proved your character, not your character, but you proved the work in that particular environment, which was a comedy environment. Thus, these days, pushing through difficult times requires a certain specificity of looking at our environments. Now, many of us on the show, religious people, Muslim, Christian, but even in those aspects, if you look at prophetic tradition, prophetic history, all of our prophets have been asked to do the same thing, to engage environments that were different than where they came from, to engage environments that were foreign to them, to engage environments in many regards that were hostile, but to have the wherewithal to understand this thing, whether it's religion, whether it's Quran, whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Bible, somehow this thing lent itself to character whereby you didn't crush, you didn't crumble, you didn't fold in the most difficult of times. Now, let's be honest. Everybody can't do it. Everybody can't do it. And I'm going to say everybody can't do it at the same time, more important. Thus, this whole idea of pushing through in difficult times is helping other people recognize what the environment is. Any kind of religious movement, spiritual movement, political movement, artistic movement has the nomenclature and the responsibility to inform the public, okay? To inform the environment. And one of the things that I have talked about, and many of you remind me of, is that there is a certain magic, there is a certain skill set, if you will, to engaging hostile environments. They say with difficulty becomes ease, right? With difficulty comes ease. With difficulty also becomes familiarity. With difficulty also becomes understanding. Difficulty also gives you information. You learn. One of my favorite baseball players, Hank Aaron, home run king, right? Home run king. I don't care what anybody says. Hank Aaron was the home run king. Let me tell you something about Hank Aaron, which I loved. Hank Aaron was a child of the Negro baseball leagues. And in the Negro baseball leagues, what he learned was to work through, hear me now, to work through hostile environments. To not worry about what was in the stand, but to be able to have a single focus to look at how the ball was gripped before it left the pitcher's hand. Did it turn this way? Did it turn that way? He could read the seams of the ball. And being able to read the seams of the ball, he was able to make contact with the ball repeatedly. Hence, he's the home run king. Now, let's even go deeper. We talk about being the home run king. How many balls did he actually hit? How many runs did he actually make? If you do your homework, it's an extraordinary amount of hits that the man had. He's the home run king. But look at his hits, because his hits give a certain detail in terms of his acuity of understanding the game. So even now, let me give a shout out to Sister Santiago. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for coming on the show. I hope you're feeling well. I know you had some health issues, so keep you in dua. Everybody make sure we make a dua for Sister Santiago. All right. Maybe I'm thinking about going to California. I keep calling you Santiago, I'm sorry. But pushing through in difficult times requires also courage. Unabated, unfiltered courage. Courage right now is something that's missing in the public discussion. The ability to stand up and say that these things are not wrong. These things are not wrong, or these things are not right, however we do it, but to take it in a way whereby we understood that in saying it, it's for the good of the public. I'm working on a paper for one of my classes, Islamic law. And, there are a lot of aspects to Islamic law, a lot of terms. And I used to sit around going, you know what, why didn't Islamic law really, really resonate with African Americans? And I thought about it. And in my homework, and I realized in my research, I said, Islamic law really didn't resonate with African Americans in the 50s, 60s, and 70s because it didn't identify the problems and circumstances that they were going through. It was a colonialized fiqh, jurisprudence. And these laws that they were giving to African Americans, we didn't accept them because they were laws that kept you a slave, kept you colonized, kept you in your place, kept you enslaved, kept you inferior. Because if you put those laws in the hands of the ruling class, they would oppress you just like all the other laws that were on the books. And I began to think about it, and I began to write about it. And the other thing is that the laws, the Islamic law that was brought to this country and given to African Americans, I'm going to say it, I'll take whatever flack I'm going to get, it didn't reflect courage. It didn't reflect courage. It didn't reflect that this is the foundation of why you're going to fight institutional justice, institutional racism, institutional injustice, foundational injustice. And this is clearly without madhabs, Islamic schools of thought. Now, I'll probably get in trouble for that, and it's okay. It's all right, because it needs to be said. It needs to be said. But my point is this. All of us, brothers and sisters, have an opportunity, just like Mom maybe said, we all got a mouth. Now, what you say or what you don't say reflects on your character. There are times I've said things, and looking back, maybe I could have said them differently, maybe I could have not said them at all, but it was truthful. It was like, look, I have to say what I'm going to say, and the chips will fall as they may. As we watched Denzel Washington yesterday on Fences, people go in the comment section, oh, he didn't tell his son that he liked them. I'm like, you don't understand Black men in the 50s. He was trying to toughen his son up because he knew what was out there in the world. I'm 53 years old, but I'll tell you this, my mother and my father sat me down and they said, listen, baby boy, you're going to school and you're going to be going to school around some white folks. And they said, not all white folks are bad. Not all white folks are good. She's like, not all Black folk are bad. Not all Black folks are good. She said, but there is a possibility that you will run into one that is bad. He said, and when you run into one that is bad, she says, the thing that you don't want to do is put in your mind that the whole environment has no value, that the whole environment is toxic. And from a very young age, just like everyone else here on the show, I learned to separate and compartmentalize, there you go, the environment. And I realized, character statements in a close proximity have a lot how we move and frame each other. One of the things I really love, I was talking to JT about this. A lot of times an environment may not be ideal, but it may not be ideal for you. And sometimes it's not so much, they say, surrounding yourself with the right people. Don't surround yourself with negative people, blah, 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 blah. Here's the deal, don't make allowances for negative situations. Like I've heard, oh, drugs are bad and da da da. I grew up around drugs. I grew up around alcohol. What's the difference? I had a character disposition to say at some point in time, those things aren't good for me. The same way before I was Muslim, I would take a drink or a smoke or something like that until you come into greater knowledge of what is your character going to be. So I want to say pushing through difficult times in some regards is character driven. However, pushing through difficult times is also a great opportunity to develop yourself as a learning organization. Let me explain this. As a learning organization, many of us benefit from learning organizations in front of us. They're called mothers, fathers, uncles, religion. These things, pushing through difficult times, frame themselves to be learning organizations, which is something way beyond the whole scope of, if you allow me to say it, the environment. I understand economics. I understand not having. I understand being fired. I understand all those things. But how do I understand them? I understand them as parts of the environment, not necessarily my character per se. You may get fired, but do you stop working? Do you start learning? Do you stop thinking? Do you start investigating? Do you start creating? And the answer is no. No. And it's antithetical of the environment because you have so much in the environment that is really framed to affect your character build, your character makeup. And we have to get beyond that because this has begun to become for lack of a better word, this is the mantra now. If you really want to watch politics now, this political environment and everything that you're seeing now is an aspect of an environment that over a period of time broke down people's character, the character essence. We've all heard the hadith that if you see something wrong, what do? Correct it with your hand, correct it with your mouth. If not, let it make an impression on your heart, right? What was the opposite of that? What if you see something that's wrong, but you find benefit in not doing any of the three things that I just mentioned to you? Think about that. You see something wrong, but there's a benefit for you not saying anything. There's a benefit for you for not changing it with your hand. There's a benefit for you blocking it out of your mind. And that's the situation we have today. Character counts, brothers and sisters. Character counts. It counts more than environments. They always say, so-and-so is this way over here, is this way over here. But OGs is like, yo, he's the same over here as he was over here. And we laugh at that. We laugh at it when in some regards we should marvel at that people have the consistency to not put on airs, to not misrepresent themselves, to not lie about who they are, to not manipulate people. And this situation scenario right now is interesting because I've said that how do we get it back? Because this is a predominant environment right now. One of the things that does worry me, and I've said this before, is what is the effect on our children? Children watch society and they look at the messages and the results and the language that society gives them, and it frames them at a very young age about what their character is going to be. You know, no, you'll say, good guy's supposed to finish last. No, good guy's supposed to finish first. My grandfather would say, forget being a good guy, finish. Don't worry about being first or last, finish. And that was the character caveat that I gave me. Again, what did Alchemist said right here? Pain, sweat is just weakness leaving the body. Yeah. Because in real time, brothers and sisters, there is something to be said about doing something correctly over and 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 over again. You develop what's called, in the sports game, muscle memory. Muscle memory. One of the greatest scorers in the history of the NBA, Allen Iverson, was also one of the smallest, at barely 6'1", and that's being generous. He was an incredible shooter. He shot. Now, just for you guys that don't know, I've never played professional basketball. I played pickup games and some league stuff. To shoot a ball 30 times in the course of a game, it's exhausting. To shoot, run up and down the court, play offense, play defense, run the play, run the point, all these things. But the interesting thing about Allen Iverson, and even Kobe Bryant, as a matter of fact, is that the shot they took at the beginning of the game, looked the same as the shot they took at the end of the game. Whether they rose off the wrong foot or they were off balance, when they got to the top of this shot, their hand worked off of muscle memory and they shot the ball correctly and had a very, very positive result most of the time. In these times, brothers and sisters, might I suggest that we engage muscle memory to push through difficult times. So when we have to take a shot off balance and we off one leg, when we get in the air, we still have the muscle memory and the character to straighten the shot out and shoot it correctly. You got bumped, you shot it correctly. You lost your job, the form is still the same. You got sick, the form is still the same. Brothers, you got locked up and did 25 years. When you get out, the form has to still be the same. I say it because I've been through it. I don't say it because I'm any kind of authority. I say it in this format because we've all been through it. We've all had to bounce back and learn that muscle memory. And that muscle memory reduces that pain. You don't sweat as much. And all of a sudden, it becomes preemptive. It becomes a skill. It becomes a situation where you can attack a problem as opposed to waiting for a problem to attack you. So let me give one little shout out for our show tomorrow. Not a show tomorrow, but on Saturday. I'm going to bring this up. Please bear with me a little bit. Oh, I don't even have it. Oh, wait a minute. Let me try and get it, brothers. Okay. Work with me here, brothers. Oh, it won't come up. Okay, never mind. I'll talk about it a little bit. Our guest coming to the show on Saturday, December 5th, is none other than Sister Nana Furman. She's a climate activist, senior ambassador of Green Faith and Interfaith Multi-Faith Partnership, and they engage in faith communities, talking about environmental leadership and action. Honored with former U.S. Vice President Gore with the 2020 Climate Reality Ring Award. So this sister is going to come and talk about ecology, the climate. Not like Donald Trump talks about it, or people who don't believe in science. I hate that. I don't believe in science, whatever. I don't know what you believe in. But talk about sustainable initiatives that have so much to do other than us thinking about trees and leaves. We're talking about actual air that we breathe. She's originally from Indonesia, and she worked with World Wildlife Fund, if you will. And she also initiated the Green Mastership Project for Islamic Society of North America. She will be here, and I would suggest everybody, if you can on Saturday, if you have the time, check that out. because we've been talking about, I don't know about you, but I'm going to say this. I started hearing about the ecology and singing about it when Marvin Gaye was singing Mercy, Mercy Me back in the 70s. Now, Marvin Gaye talking about the ecology back in the 70s about fish full of mercury and things like that, and the damage and the harm we were doing on Mother Earth back in the 70s. We never stopped, brothers and sisters. So I think this is going to be a very, very current conversation. I would encourage everybody to attend, also because the guest host will be Sister Satana Whitfield, our consultant producer. This is her show. I'm going to be sitting back in the back shutting up because you got to let people shine, right? So listen, I pray everybody's well. You have a great day. It's Throwback Thursday. Whatever you need to do to get through Friday, I'm wishing you the best. But let's think about some of these things. We're pushing through difficult times. Remember, separate the character from the environment. Separate your character from the environment. And then you'll be able to see yourself in a much more different light, and a much more positive light than attaching to an environment that's going to give you nothing. One of my favorite quotes about the devil: he promises you everything and gives you nothing. Environments are the same. So everybody have a wonderful day. Inshallah, this video will work on the way out. I tested it. We're having problems with our outro. So if I have problems with the outro, everybody, please forgive me. And let me give another shout out. Sister Reese said she loved her some Iverson. Girl, go ahead. All right. Have a great day, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow, inshallah. Take care. And just take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.